It sounds like we're playing the game. All right. So we tend to do this with different guests to just try to have some fun and make a case here for just something different. Uh, we're gonna play. It's a new game since we've never had somebody on that talked about ants before. You're gonna be able, hypothetically, I want everybody to kind of explain their case for like what kind of an ant, what species of ant would you want to keep, and then oh, my camera actually just like reacted to that. I don't know why. Like anyway, long story short, so it'll be something that you want to keep, and then you have to explain like the size of the enclosure, like what you'd want to keep in it, where it would be, like what you would want to do with it. So it's creating your own ant enclosure game. I guess you give us a compelling uh, synopsis of what you would create if you had a dream. How about your dream ant colony or your dream ant habitat?
Oh man, I don't know if I know enough about ants to really give you a good answer. Like, I'm definitely one of those people who, like, I was talking about, like, it seems kind of intimidating that they can get so huge. So I've never even looked into that as, like, really a pet that I would keep anytime soon.
Well, how about this, Amelia? You also keep frogs and different things. So if you were to keep an ant colony that you could use as a feeder even for them, this could be a good transition or segue into the next segment after the game. But, think of an ant colony that would complement, what you have, like tarantulas and frogs and roaches and stuff, what you could feed to them or feed off, different things. Um, Josh, you just have to probably pick the carpenter ant because I
No,
don't.
I have an answer, Aaron.
Oh, you have an answer?
Yeah, you didn't think of that, huh? First of
That-
all, my wife would kill me if I had an ant colony. No offense to anyone. Um, but like you said, like if I could just imagine some awesome setup, this would probably be like the worst one to keep in your house. I don't know ants that well, but ever since I was little, I was fascinated with the army ants only because they use their bodies to make the nest, and they just the way that they work and cover large amounts of territory to kill prey. And then I like how they make little highways and carry the bodies back through the made highway. So I probably wouldn't have enough area to even have something like that, and that's a complete fantasy. But that's an interesting group of ants that I'm at least somewhat aware of. Yeah, and they're probably not allowed to be in Pennsylvania, I'm guessing. I don't know. Are they not native to United States, right? Aren't they like
no,
South America?
they're
Yeah.
not native to
So
Pennsylvania.
yeah, so they're it's not something I would even consider. Yeah, I think they're very intelligent. I mean, I'm sure a lot of ants are, but I think like just the way that they hunt is
They're so aggressive.
like they know you're up in a tree or something. Like they're I don't know. The documentaries on them are kind of scary. Like I wouldn't even go near one. I'm just saying like that's something that's interesting. I'd go to a zoo if they had like I don't know how big of an enclosure it'd have to be, but if it was gargantuan, but it was like enclosed and you could see it through glass and walk around and see them kind of doing their thing, that'd be kind of cool.
There are some zoos that have pretty nice ant enclosures. They're usually for leafcutter ants and stuff like that, but like um the insect building at the Cincinnati Zoo is a really good one for that. That's a cool building in general. They've got some really nice exhibits.
Is there anything you want to add, like any scale to it, any type of environment? Like, you're just gonna have army ants in a coffee can, or like, where are you keeping
I
them?
don't know. It probably something with like if I had a house with a 2-story foyer or something, and you could put them in a glass like enclosure that's going up the foyer, and so there's like a tree inside of there, and maybe their nest is in the base of that tree or something crazy.
You know what you could do? You can get like some type of clear tubing and run it through like your cupboards where your food is.
Yeah.
So that way, whenever your wife goes to open to get something to eat, she sees a bunch of ants crawling around.
Yeah, that'll teach her. I'll be
So
living with you, Aaron.
yeah, I'll be building another tank, and it'll be for you. Well, I'll just sleep in the tanks like coffins. We can all actually fit in that 240 gallon. We literally
That's
could
why you
all.
bought it, Aaron.
Well, if I could
When
get,
your
if I,
wife kills you for keeping ants, you can just be fed to the ants, and it's the circle of life.
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be a horrible way to go, but yeah,
poetic justice.
that would be. So which one of you guys wants to go next? Is it Mac or is it Amelia?
Oh gosh, I don't know exactly what particular species I would go with. I'd have to do more research on that, but I guess it would be kind of interesting for uh in the context of like herp keeping for like frogs or for lizards or something, if you could I guess kind of um maybe not just have a separate ant colony that you're harvesting from occasionally and tossing into um your animals enclosure, but if you did like maybe some kind of an adjacent ant enclosure to your animals space and then had some kind of a movable panel or something like that. I'm sure you'd have to have this all blacked out so you weren't just constantly having your animal trying to get through and hunt all the time, but like maybe like a couple times a week or however frequently you were going to feed off ants, just like under supervision, kind of like remove or open that paneling or whatever and let like and see this working really well with like lizards, just let them go and like actually have the experience of coming across an ant colony to hunt from and stuff like that. um if it was something that like your ants wouldn't be getting so stressed out that they wouldn't like be able to function as a colony or something, if they could like sense that there was that animal there all the time or anything. I don't know how well they can sense what's going on outside of their enclosure necessarily, but it would be cool to have like if you had something that built like a really dramatic kind of like a mound sort of nest, or like had a really tall enclosure that you had them like running up and down trees or something like that, like the carpenter ant idea, that you could have a good space for your animal to go over and kind of like pluck them off as they go by for a while.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, there's certain ants that you could do that with. Formica subcericea, for example, the black field ant. They have amazing eyesight. So when we go out looking for nuptial flights of them, so we'll to find the queens, it's in the middle of the day, and you stop, and you really just sometimes are better off just crouching down and not moving because their eyesight is so good that as soon as you are still for about 5 or 10 seconds, you'll see everything just come to life and they'll start moving again. Otherwise, there's a lot of times you'll just pass by them and you'll never see them because their eyesight is that good. They're used to being preyed on by birds, and we see lots of birds on those nuptial flights. So that would be a good ant, like in that situation where, maybe they had a little bit of a natural defense. Their eyesight's pretty good, but yeah, that there's some ants that I think would work in that situation. That would be neat.
Yeah, so uh, we're going to talk about that because my situation is going to kind of segment us into talking about my actual situation going on with it. But Mac, what would you pick if you had to decide?
Yeah, mine's kind of evolved over the years. I've had lots of ideas, like a coffee table. That idea is terrible because you're always going to be touching it. Most ants are not keen on vibration. The one
Could
right
you do
now
like
that's kind
a vertical kind of thing, like how people have those bee
of
colonies indoors kind of thing?
yeah, we've got. I've built a couple of habitats for like natural science center museums, and so we've done some of that stuff. I like the idea of the big, giant, tall ones that kind of span the size of an entire building. Like they have leafcutter ant colonies that do that, where they're just so large, and it really is a good representation of the actual size of the colony. Honeypot ants have some of them, not all of them. They can dig nests that are 20 feet deep in the ground. So I thought it would be neat to start like on the second floor with a colony, and as it gets bigger, you instead of building out to the side or above, you could start including like the first floor, like going down and having them actually expanding down into the lower levels of the house, and then you still keep their feeding on that level, but as you're walking by on different levels, you're seeing the same colony. I thought that's kind of like what I would do. There's, that would take a long time. I think probably a good 5 or 10 years to get them to that point where they're big enough. But
I like that idea. That's neat. Would work really nicely in a museum or something like that.
yeah, hopefully one day we'll see more ants in museums. Right now, it's really limited. We've got here at the Natural Science Center Museum, there's an acacia tree with a certain species of ant that lives in those, which is a pretty neat display. You can't really see inside the colony.
Those the symbiotic kind of ones.
Yeah, they benefit from each other. So yeah, I mean that's a cool display, but really my interest, and I think most of the people who are involved in ant keeping as a hobby, you're just drawn to the activity inside the nest where the brood piles are, and the ants are working to feed the brood and rearrange the brood, and like when you have harvester ants, they're putting their seeds in different chambers. Where is the queen? The queen's chamber. That's always so important. So that's always been my focus, like building a nest that's cool. Like foraging areas are awesome, don't get me wrong. I mean, but a lot of the activity level that goes on in the foraging areas is pretty limited to very short periods of time when they're being fed. So yeah, just focusing on the nest area is what I've always been thinking of. So the lighting is something that would be, a huge deal, whether you have it like a glow in the dark or backlit or some way where you can kind of turn it into something that looks like it's part of your house or something.
How good is their I guess the range or the spectrum of what they can see? Would you be able to potentially do something like a red light or a black light or something like that, a particular color of light or whatever, that it would be more unobtrusive to them? Or can they see pretty much all of it, and so you just gotta adjust your intensity?
Yeah, that would be pretty specific to the ant type. Like honeypot ants are nocturnal. So I don't know how averse they are to like black lighting, but I know that my Formica subcericea colony, for example, they absolutely detest black light. So this is a while back. I actually accidentally left our black light strip on the table and noticed that when I came back to pick it up and turn it off, the entire colony had flushed off that side, and there was not a single ant. And it was like, wow, that's impressive that light, although that light is not hot enough at all, it's just that spectrum of light annoyed them that much to where they moved. So I've been actually using black light to help move ants more safely, putting it over like colonies you need to move to a different test tube. In the past, you had to do that either manually, like dumping them, or you had to use a light that sometimes caused heat, which would then cause condensation and lots of problems inside the test tube. But with black light, you can do it. So lighting can really affect an ant's behavior. So I think most museums use like LED lights. Those are not too bad. But yeah, I think mostly like the oranges and the red lights. Those are what I see a lot of people using for museum color lights, if that makes sense.